Yep. I don't see the I'm on the Sevan Podcast YouTube page, and I don't see the link for it. Usually there's a link that says like okay, playlist, videos, refresh. Huh, I can't see it. That's weird. I think we're live, Brian.
Yeah? Huh.
It feels like we're live. I felt my personality shift a little bit.
I don't see any red things on my screen. Like we're not even recording.
Oh, I see something that says live. It has the same image as before. It says 205 people watching. Is that where we're at? I just clicked on it. No. Wait. Oh, yeah. I recognize the hat I'm wearing. Pop out the chat window. Oh, as some of you guys know, every Saturday night I stop. Thanks, Lizard. Live. We are live. Every Saturday night I stop eating and I don't start eating again until Monday morning. Basically, I fast between like 30 and 40 hours once a week. That's what old people do. And so this is my fasting day. You're live, homies. And when I do, and usually around 2 o'clock, I start to fade. I start to turn off. So I need to rely on you guys a lot. If I start falling asleep, nodding off, or my questions are horrible, which I don't have any questions, then you guys just chime in the comments. Just start hammering me. It's weird, right, Brian? That it's over?
It's not over. We're still here.
You know what I mean. You know what I mean. I'm about to dig in on a huge cup of Good Dude's coffee, by the way, iced coffee.
I wish you could just prepare one of those for me every time we get on the show also.
I wish I could prepare one for you too, buddy. Thinking about moving to Cali?
I don't know. You got a guest room?
Absolutely. Okay, I'm going to start over in the comments, guys, because I ain't got shit. Actually, I have stuff. I know. That's not true. Did you see, what's the really hot chick's name who did great with the colored hair? Danielle Brandon. Did you see the post she made where she throws her mask away at the end of the competition?
I did.
Yeah, that was cool. That was hardcore. She's pretty badass. Did you get a chance to talk to her?
Not talk to her. Made eye contact with her as she was walking off the floor. She gave me a little acknowledgement, and I just tried to communicate to her that I was proud of her.
Acknowledgement like she knew who you were, or acknowledgement like she gives to all the cute guys?
I don't know.
It's fair.
She definitely knew it was me.
One grateful shooter. She definitely knew it was you. Keep telling yourself that. One grateful shooter, 1999. Thank you. If I had any more emotion to give, I'd give it. Brian, someone sent me a screenshot, and it's you. And it says, Brian's such a good dude, and it's during the adaptive athlete announcement. And the guy wrote, Brian was the first guy to stand up, and it's you standing in a crowd of people. Now, I can't see the adaptive athletes in it, so I cannot verify if it's true, but that's the narrative around the story.
I did stand up immediately when they started walking out on the floor. I was in the second row, so I don't know what anyone behind me was doing.
Did you do that to virtue signal the world that you're a good dude? That you wanted someone to snap a photo of you and see that you were the first one standing?
Yes, it was all about me.
Sevan's volume is really low compared to Brian's. I know it's this microphone. I'm going to get a new mic. How's that? Is that better? Now I'm like resting my nose against it. Is it better? I mean, seriously. Holy shit. Kahir O'Leary. Hey, dude, listen to that name. Kahir O'Leary. That means his mom is Indian or Pakistani and his dad is Irish. You gotta love the planet. What is this bullshit about cultural appropriation? There's no such thing as cultural appropriation. There's just banging out of your gene pool. And that's what being human's about. Okay, here, tell me about your name real quick. I want to know what kind of name. What is that? He made a fat donation with that English money again. Justin Medeiros, Brian. So in that handstand workout, he did we ever get confirmation of why he was getting no rep? I never went back and looked at the footage. I'm assuming after listening to Sean and Chase, and man, there was a lot of demand on them to explain a lot of shit today. It sounds like it was because he wasn't in control at the bottom. And in all fairness, I saw Velner get no rep a bunch of times for that too. So I felt like it was consistent, but I never went back and looked to see if Medeiros really wasn't in control in that last rep.
Neither did I. I could not believe the number of messages I was getting. I don't know if I want to say complaining or pointing out or highlighting or asking about. I feel like the tone was probably different from a lot of people. That one rep at the end of that workout, and it was so overwhelming for me. I tried to respond to as many as I could that I almost just put an Instagram story, said, "Please stop texting me about this. We'll talk about it later." But my general thoughts about that are, occasionally there's a moment that where the judging is really highlighted at the games and sometimes gets a lot of negative press or connotation or just reception from the viewers. And in that workout in particular, that's a movement we've never seen before. The standard was not briefed to any of us. The athletes and judges are the only ones who know what the standard were and was, and we can hopefully ask some of them about it for some clarification in the future. But at this point, we don't know what they were told. Still, I don't know what they were told. All I know is that a lot of athletes in all 4 heats were getting a lot of no reps, and some of them were pretty obvious why, and some of them looked like really close calls. And my suspicion is that's a very difficult position to be put in as a judge, and especially when it's the 2 guys battling for the overall lead that are battling for the heat lead and the event win on the last rep of the last movement, and everyone's watching, and you feel like you know better than them, and it's like you might have been right, but most likely that judge was doing the best he could with or she could with the information they were given. And I didn't hear any of the athletes. It didn't look like the athletes were complaining. It didn't look like Justin was complaining. He just went about his business and did another rep and finished the workout in second place. And basically, first or second, it didn't matter at that point. When I saw how good he was at those, like I said, we thought Pat was going to win that one, and he did. And Medeiros was right there with him after the first round, right there with him after the second round, and I was like, holy cow, man. This guy's got it all this year. And that's why at that moment I was like, yep, this is his.
And when you say, I don't remember your exact words, but when you say it puts the judges in a bad place, you mean because there's 5,000 people in the room looking at it and they all are thinking about the athletes and they're trying to blame the judge, but really no one knew what the standards were? Is that what you mean by it puts the judges in a bad place? It puts them against the crowd?
5,000 in the stands or whatever it is, 500,000 online watching, and
Yeah, I
all
don't know
the
how many
eyes.
were in the stands. I
And
made
people
that up.
are,
Go on.
people have emotional investment. Obviously,
Right.
half the people want Velner, half the people want Medeiros, and if you're the ones that want Medeiros and you see that happen, then you're pissed about it. And if you're the ones that see Velner and you want Velner and you see that happen, you're like, oh, phew, good, Velner still got the win or something like that. And it's like, you shouldn't have an emotional attachment to it to the point where you start criticizing the ref or the judge for one rep at that point in the workout. If there was a mistake, then the athlete will appeal. And just like we saw, I think several of you pointed it out, it reminded you of the 2017 2-2-2-3 interval workout when Carl Saunders was told to cross the finish line 3 reps early. They corrected it in the back room, and that's how there's a process to account for something if there was a mistake on the floor. They have not changed that. It still says Pat won the workout and Justin got second. I don't know if he appealed it or not, but it's all part of it. Sometimes there are bad calls on the floor, and sometimes they go your way and sometimes they don't. And the athletes know that, and it's best if you can understand that too.
And we can't even blame anyone because we don't know we don't know the movie standards. I'm going to ask Dave tonight. I'm going to suggest, I'm going to be like, so Brian and I were talking, and we think when there's new movements like that you should not only demo them and go over the movement standards for the athletes, but also for the crowd. So what do you think, Mr. Castro? I'll wait till the end to say that because that's the kind of thing he'll hang up on me for. T. Drew 81.
If
Brian,
you say it like that, you probably will. But if you say like, hey, what was the movement standard for the freestanding handstand push-ups, you might explain it.
Yeah, we need it explained, but the thing is that as the fans, we need it explained to us at home too, so that we can. So we need to know too. We need to be able to watch the event, and it's kind of like this. If you're looking at a piece of artwork and you're like, yeah, okay, that's cool, that's good, and then all of a sudden they tell you that it was painted with calf blood, and they tell you what the
And dehydrated urine or something.
yeah, then all of a sudden the whole thing changes for you. You have appreciation for it, and if you found out that it was painted with while the guy was holding a brush in his foot, then it changes again. And so we need to have context. We need to know. We need to know. T Drew 81, Brian, you killed it. Being in our eyes and ears this year, much appreciated. Good, genuine dude. How do you know
Thank
he's
you.
genuine? I'll go with all that other shit. He. Anyway,
You can say it.
thank you for the holy shit, you guys. Thank you, Drew, and thank you always. Anyone who wants to give me fodder to attack Brian, I always appreciate that. Gina Bartoli, $25. Who are you guys excited to talk to this week? I don't know if it's going to make you happy, but we're going to start getting some UFC guys on. And there was a fight a few weeks ago with Sean O'Malley. Basically, just fucking punched this dude in the face for 3 rounds non-stop until the referee had to stop it, and he used the guy's face as a punching bag. And the guy's name is Chris, and I can't pronounce his last name, but the guy just took it. And the guy's a beast. It was his UFC premiere, first time fighting in the UFC, and he's fighting one of the best fighters in the UFC. And he took the fight, I want to say, on 5 days' notice. And so we're going to interview him. I think we're going to get a chance to interview Corey Sandhagen's coach. I think that's who it was. And then we also have Jason House coming up. I know I keep talking about this, but he is the CEO and owner of Iridium Sports Agency, which is the largest sports agency for MMA fighters. But also, I know you're probably asking about CrossFitters, and I did shoot a text to several people right after the event was over, hoping we can sneak someone on for you guys. And of course, we've hunted the biggest dogs. I know it's a big ask, and it makes me feel uncomfortable sending them texts, but fuck it.
Well, I think both Brent Fikowski and Tia had told us that after the games they probably willing to do it. So hopefully we can get to talk to them, because I'm sure they've got a lot of good stories and insights from this week.
But we want them now, Brian. Like seriously.
Right now we know that right now they're probably peeing in front of some dude or some chick.
Right. And then they should go to their hotel room and shower, and then they should just give us 15 minutes, because that will make my head big that they came on our show. Scott Leopard? Oh, by the way, that guy Kahir schooled me. He is not Indian. Kahir means castle in Irish, so I screwed that all up. Trying to posture on you guys like I know the ethnicity of people's names. Thanks for the excellent coverage, Brian. You are a champ. Scott Leopard. Thanks, Scott. $25. Dope. Thanks, Brian, for being the only media visible this weekend. This is for you. Sevan, do you have my sort of relation? Sorry, one more time. Adam Yudman, $20. Thank you, Adam. Thanks, Brian, for being the only media visible this weekend. This is for you. Oh, shit. So Adam, I don't get half that? People are delegating where their money's going? You suck. Sevan, do you have any sort of relationship with Arm & Hammer? I mean, I'm not trying to be funny or anything. I just start in the most broad sense. We both live on the same planet. We're both human. Our DNA is probably, or whatever it is, our genetics are probably similar. We except he's like more buff than me and bigger than me. We're both Armenian. I've met him on 5 occasions. I've run into him at the games. I've run into him at CrossFit HQ. I've kept my distance from him on purpose, not just because he's very vocal, and I kind of don't want to tangle with him. I have commented that even though I disagree with him on many topics, I find his podcast extremely refreshing, or his show refreshing, because he doesn't dilly-dally like I've been dilly-dallying this whole show. The fucking guy just digs in and starts he just goes off. And you know, and these other guys that I'm just constantly making fun of, like I don't want to see what, like, your cheese melting on your pizza and the gratuitous shot of your microwave door opening and just all that nonsense in 15 minutes of you working out. I don't want to see that. and he didn't play that game. So I compliment him on that on the podcast. A lot of these, he's also mentioned this podcast before, and I want to tell you something that I haven't said before, but all these other fucking jokers, they quote us. They watch our shit and they're afraid to say my name and they're afraid to say the podcast name because they're haters, but they're fucking circling us like sharks. And I appreciate it. You guys are cool, and I'll keep saying all of your names and I'll keep lifting you guys up because rising tides float all ships. And I also believe, and I think we proved it this weekend, that when you get someone like Ryan Jevning, Brian Friend, and Matt Souza and Sevan Podcast together, who are fucking obsessed about anything they do, we should call ourselves the Labradors. We're gonna fucking do it, and we're gonna crush it. And so it makes me feel, and we did do that this weekend, and I feel like the space shuttle and everyone else is just along for the ride. And I used that same metaphor the other day when I was speaking to Dave, and I made sure that he knew that our space shuttle was flying in his universe. Jacqueline Robinson, man, thanks, boys, for the memorable weekend. $10. JPSAW Chuck, $20. It says CA. That means it's cash, right? Legend, boys, thank you for the content. You think he's English? Legends? Who talks
Maybe
like
Australian, actually. I feel like they say legend a lot.
Oh, yeah, Pat Velner is the Chris Mutahino of CrossFit. This guy, Tudor McDada, said it. So Chris Mutahino, I don't know, that's going to be a tough guest to have on because I can't say his last name. But basically, that's the guy that got punched in the face nonstop in that UFC fight. And he's saying Pat Velner is that guy of CrossFit.
All right. Take it easy.
Have you talked to Velner today, Brian? Since the event's over? I know you guys are tight.
Yep. What did he say here? He said, well, I sent him a congratulations and great fight, and he said, thanks, brother. Tough when you only show up to half the events, LOL. Justin deserved it. He had a great weekend. That's the only communications we've had so far.
And then you text him back and said, how about 15 minutes of your time for our podcast? Go, Brian.
They had interviewed Tia after announcing her as the fittest on Earth for the 5th consecutive time.
Wait a second. Did you witness this yourself? This is your eyewitness? Okay.
I can't remember if it was, I think they had either interviewed Annie or they were about to interview Annie. I think they'd interviewed Annie. And then I just saw that Tia, they had taken Danielle, she was in the final heat. They'd taken her off to the side as they had after every single event the entire week. She had basically been sequestered from the competition and the other female competitors from as soon as the situation with Bethany Shadburn at the start of the week and all the way up to that point. And I saw that Tia had gone over to the kind of corner of the arena floor where she was standing there, and she had grabbed Danielle and brought her with her so she could go in and sit with all the other top female athletes in the middle of the finish area on the competition floor. And the crowd noticed, acknowledged that, cheered for her, and I thought it was just in a very astute and aware. It's probably extremely emotional for T, even though it's her 5th year. But in that moment, she still had the awareness to go and do that for Danielle, which I thought was really nice.
Questions. How close was Danielle to the rest of the group in feet? English.
Tia gave her a hug.
But how close was she when she sequestered her? And by the way, did you notice he used that word sequestered? It's when Brian talks like that it scares me that someone's going to hire him away from this podcast because he still has a professional veneer. How far away was Tia sitting from Danielle?
Prior to going to get her?
Yeah.
Tia was in what would be the middle lane of the floor, and Danielle was on the farthest lane, so half the distance of the width of the floor.
And it was just empty space between them?
Yeah.
Basically, the athletes were with Tia and Danielle was by herself?
Danielle was with the medical, one or two medical team members that have been with her all week.
Yeah, she was with Katina Thornton. And was Danielle masked at the time?
I'm not sure if she was masked when Tia went over there or not, but when she came back by the rest of the women, she was not wearing a mask.
God damn.
Everyone could finally see her smile.
Tia. It's funny, part of me, like when Tia does the interviews, I just see an alligator. Not a robot, but just like an alligator, like non-blinking, savage, just giving just the right answers. And then I noticed that during the award ceremony, she turned the handshakes into hugs. Like she just flipped the script. She went from the coldest one to the warmest one. And by the way, that's the kind of leadership that we need from the champions, right?
For sure. And I mean, it's tough to do one interview, and she gets to do a dozen of them over the course of the week or whatever. I mean, she won 9 events. She was probably interviewed after 7 of them. She's probably asked to be at every press conference. Obviously, she has to talk after winning her 5th consecutive title, and she somehow still finds kind of refreshing and new things to say, and they seem to always be in the appropriate tone. You know, as middle of competition, it's different than when it's the end of the day, and if it's the end of the day, it's different when it's the end of the weekend. And when there's an athlete who she felt like did something that was commendable and needs to be recognized besides her in the event, she talks about that person too. So she's got a tremendous awareness and presence despite everything else that's happening on the competition floor.
Jessica Pearson said, I read it and it's gone. Oh, quote, situational awareness, close quote. Josh Bridges would approve. Greg Hayes, thanks for the money, ma'am. $25. You're a boss. Amarbir Dylan. You got to be Indian. Come on, man. Amarbir? You got to get that right. Please tell me that I got your ethnicity right. $20. Thanks, dude. Awesome. Amazing. Brian, from Melinda Clark, do you think Pat... It's funny. She says, does Brian think Pat will retire this year? Yeah, I know who to ask the questions to. Thanks, Melinda. You think Pat will retire this year?
A couple people have asked me that. I don't think so. I think that he will at least come back for one more.
So when you see stuff like that, and he knows that, like, Pat knows whether he gave it 98% this year or 100%, and when you get beat by a guy like Justin Medeiros, who you know is going to get better, you have to wonder how much of it is coming back to, like, it's got to stifle the motivation to come back, no? If he's convinced he gave 100% already?
I don't
And
know.
again, I'm making the presupposition that I know why they compete.
I mean, everyone knows what happened on the swim. He really mis-executed on the handstand walk. And then event 10, an 11th place finish, and the final 11th place finish. Those are his worst finishes other than those 2 events. I mean, he was basically just as good, if not better than Medeiros on 13 of the 15 workouts. I don't think that he'll necessarily look at this and say that guy's better than me and only getting better. I think he'll look at it and say, I can beat that guy, and I know I can beat that guy, and hopefully he'll come back and try to do that.
Oh, man, you had to go there. I can't believe you just said that.
Talking about his mental approach to when he looks back at this weekend.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about something else you said. You guys want us to shit on Medeiros' party a little bit? That sucks that I'm about to do this.
What?
I really like Justin, but Brian started it. So if you guys don't like this segment, blame Brian. Here we go. I want to show you guys. Brian is suggesting that Pat beat him in most events. Event 1, here, I'm going to make a little tally. Event 1, Justin Medeiros won. Event 2, Pat won. Event 3, Pat won. Event 4, Justin Medeiros won. Event 5, Pat won. Event 6, Justin Medeiros won. 3-3. 3-3 after 6 events. Event 7, Justin Medeiros won. Oh, Justin's winning. Event 8, Justin Medeiros won. Oh, Justin's kicking his ass. 5-3 after 8 events. Event 9, Pat Velner won. It's 5-4. Event 10, Justin Medeiros won. 6-4. Event 11, Pat Velner won. Event 12, Pat Velner won. Oh, shit, it's tied 6-6 after 12 events. Oh, Nelly. Event 13, Pat Velner won. Pat Velner's in the lead again, 7-6. Event 14, Pat Velner won. 8 events to 6. Event 15, we know Medeiros whooped some ass. So, just to be clear, Pat Velner won 8 events. If it was just the 2 of them on the floor, Pat Velner would have won 8 events and Justin Medeiros 7 events. It's not exactly the way you painted it, but I get what you're saying. I hear
That's
you.
a prize. That's
And
a
I'm
prize
glad I
fight
didn't-
right there. 15 rounds.
and I'm glad that didn't shit on Medeiros at all.
No, no, no. Nothing about what I said was intended to take anything away from Medeiros. You haven't asked me about him yet.
Okay, we'll talk about him in 1 second. Chris Cordino, you dudes are good dudes. You dudes are good dudes. Thanks, man. I like that. What, are you wearing a singlet in that photo in your profile? That's awesome. No, I haven't seen. Did you see the Redemption Road was at CrossFit Games? Oh no, I didn't know that. The inmates were played on a TV live streaming from a booth. Wow, that's awesome. I did not see that. Thank you, TK. Matt H, thanks for the great coverage. Please get Hopper back on for a follow-up. We will. Even though I talked to him the other night and I asked him when he's going to come on next, and he said he's not. But we will get him. Would love to hear his experience, what he plans
By
on
the way,
changing. Yes.
something happened to Jason Hopper today. There was a different sentiment being emitted from him after the conclusion of the final workout relative to all of his competitors and even to Dave in terms of his demeanor. He was receptive to embraces from everyone else in his heat. It seemed like a weight had kind of been removed from him. And this time when he passed Dave leaving the competition floor, instead of giving him the death stare from hell, he smiled and winked at him.
And let's get back to that death stare story in a bit. When is the prize payout going to increase greatly across the board? Needs to happen. Ethan, we've talked about this at length. You can't get water from a rock. I mean, CrossFit Inc. is what CrossFit Inc. is. CFHQ only has so much money. It's not as big of a company as you probably think it is. Aaron Patnode, great content, guys. Was it not amazing to witness Annie Thorsdottir? Amazing games. Thanks, Aaron, for the $10. And yes, that was intense. Yandy, I think Yandy gave like $100 yesterday, guys.
I think that person has been messaging me quite a bit on Instagram.
Yeah, he's smart. He's a computer dude. He probably regrets messaging me ever, and has finally realized he should message you. For those asking, Matt would have crushed the games, no doubt about that. I'm coming for Justin either next year or the one after. Wow, and he's gonna beat Justin. He sent me a picture of his gym. He's got all the equipment to do it. So are we in the Medeiros rain? I know it's so early just to say that, but are we in the Medeiros rain? I want to read you the top 10 finishers real quick, and then you tell me who because I'm going to follow up with who you think can beat him if you say it's not his rain. Being that if he stays healthy. Justin Medeiros, Patrick Velner, Brent Fikowski, Carl Goodmanson, Saxon Panchik, Yanikoski, Guy Malheiros, Alex Vigneault, Lazar Jukic, and Noah Olson. Man, I'm putting my money on Lazar Jukic. Is it Justin Medeiros time? I mean, his biggest threats are senior citizens in the sport. Seriously, if Fikowski was using a cane next year, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, he put his body through hell, and he's a giant. Medeiros.
I don't want to call it a rain until he wins a couple, but I think he is the guy to beat, at least for the going into the next season, and rightfully so. What he did this weekend was beyond impressive to me. I had pointed him out as one of the 4 guys that I thought could win the games this year. And 3 of those 4 guys finished on the podium, and the other one was Jason Hopper. And I kind of grouped Medeiros and Hopper together and said, I just don't know enough about him yet. I haven't seen enough. Obviously, Medeiros was 3rd last year, but it was, like we've talked about, it was a very different year. What he did this year, that to me puts him into a new caliber of athlete, and basically is the only guy competing right now who's actually proven that he can and has won the CrossFit Games. So he's got that target on his back. Now everyone's gunning for him, and that's a different place to be in. And he has to go back and think about not how he's going to win the games, but how he's going to defend his title. And sometimes that's a different kind of pressure and a different kind of a mindset and an approach. He might be of the kind of ilk or mindset to rise to that occasion. So far, he's proven in his career that he has the ability to do that, to see a challenge and rise above it. So maybe he'll be even better because of that. But I think there are a lot of guys in the top 10 this year who are going to come away from this weekend and say, I had a pretty good week, but I think there's a lot of room for me to improve also. I still think that Velner, if he wants to compete, is a threat. I think Fikowski did about as well as he can do this week. So, I think for him, every year that goes by now, getting back to the podium is going to be a bigger and bigger challenge for him. I think Velner might be 1 year removed from being in that same conversation. And then if you look down from there, I know that BKG was not 100% this week. He came into the week and it was his close camp. He was saying, I don't think I can podium this week. And he almost did. He was only 24 points behind Fikowski. So BKG is still relevant. Saxon Panchik, how old is Saxon Panchik? He's only 25.
Okay.
No, I don't think we talked about Saxon Panchik very much at all this week. I don't think anyone did because he had he didn't have any, breakout performances. Although he did finish third and second on the last two workouts, and that's one of the reasons why I think this guy is one of the main threats to Medeiros going forward because this weekend was a beatdown. This competition was very difficult, and to come in on those two workouts, which are heavy, technical, after all the other stuff they've been through, and place third and second on those, is a pretty good indicator of a guy who is well prepared for the duration of the test that is the CrossFit Games. So I think Saxon is definitely on the radar. Jonikoski's still only 26. Health is his biggest concern. He's obviously incredibly fit, but I don't think he's a threat to win the CrossFit Games right now. Guimaeros, well, he has some very clear holes in his games, a little bit similar to Velner, where he's got pretty good performances and a lot of stuff, and then just some, what do we see here, a 27th, a 22nd, a 27th, a 26th. So he's got, mostly in the longer stuff. If he shores that up a little bit, he'll be right back there in the top 5 for a couple, and he's only 21 years old, the youngest guy in the sport. So, and then obviously Lazar Jukic you talked about. I don't want to skip over Alex Vigneault, who had a phenomenal weekend, but he's, I would say, 29 and had about as good of a weekend. This is his best ever finish at the games. He's now has an 8th, a 9th, and 11th in his career. But an 8th, a 9th, and an 11th, similar to Jonikoski, who now, he also had his best ever finish this year, 6th, 7th, 7th, and 10th. Those types of finishes are very different than a Velner who has 2 seconds and 2 thirds, a Fikowski who has 2 fourths, a third, and a second, a BKG who has 2 thirds, a fourth, 2 fifths, and then 2 eighths. Like,
ooh,
what?
It's just crazy. BKG's maybe, he's kind of, good thing he's here. He's replaced Scott. Panchik is the best and least, I don't want to say respected, least well-known CrossFit Games.
Yeah, but I'm saying there's a different, like, Vigneault's finishes of 8th, 9th, and 11th are awesome. And 6, 7, 7, 10 is awesome. But none of those finishes are as good as the best 4 finishes that Velner, Fikowski, and BKG have had in their career. So they're just that little bit, they're the next tier down. But Lazar Jukic, first year at the Games, he was in the running for Rookie of the Year all weekend. Mal O'Brien ended up getting it. Well, I'm sure we'll get to the women in a little bit.
What place did Mal O'Brien take?
7th.
Okay. I'm bummed. I really wanted Lazar to get the Rookie of the Year, but I get it.
Until the final event, he was in the pole position for that, but she had a really good final event relative to a couple women right above her. So she ended up taking it, which is earned, obviously. So yeah, I think that Lazar, Guy, Saxon, and Velner are the biggest threats to Medeiros next year.
I want to throw
of
this
the top
in there.
10. Of the top 10.
I want to tell you why I want to go back to Rain. I know you said you want to see him win one more before you even have the discussion, but Velner did not let him win. Justin Medeiros, by the way, I have my mouth right on the mic. I'm sorry if you guys can't hear me, and I have the volume turned up full blast. Velner did not let him win. Velner gave it his all, and Justin really showed up when it was clutch. And he showed that he's a champion. I mean, like, there's no one like. In most years, this is true, but there have been years where you're like, oh, I don't know, man. Tomorrow, fucking Velner could probably beat Medeiros. I don't think anyone wants to see that tomorrow. Like, we're all satisfied. Even if we wanted Velner to win, like, we're like, holy shit, Justin did it. And Velner did it too. Velner did everything he had to do, but Medeiros did everything he had to do.
Yeah, I mean, by the time the competition ended, there was a 80-point gap between the two of them, and then 125 points down to Fikowski. So they separated themselves quite a bit from the rest of the field by the time everything was said and done. They were clearly the best and second best guys here this week. The podium settled exactly how it should have based on the performances. And they were they're the, Medeiros was the best, Pat was the second best, and I don't think there's anything you can really say to take those respective positions away from either of them.
Clive McLaughlin, did Justin Holt he gave another 5 pounds? Thank you. We're just by the end of this show, Great Britain's going to be broke. I mean, you were going to be rich, Brian. Did Justin hold back in the Open or semifinals? Long week of events necessary for his consistency to pay off? These are both questions. He's best by default thanks to no glaring weaknesses? Question mark. Sounds like he's answering his own questions.
So prior to the last event, if he obviously won the last event. Let's just say that last event had not been there and he had won the CrossFit Games after 14 events. That would have made him the first person since James Fitzgerald in 2007 to win the CrossFit Games without winning an event at the CrossFit Games.
Good point.
And the last time it happened on the women's side was 2009, Tanya Wagner. So it's very unusual to win the games without winning a single event. Now, part of that is because we've had some very dominant athletes that have won a lot of events every year. But he did end up winning that, so that stat goes out the window. And yeah, he was clearly the most consistent. We've talked about before that you can have a bad event and still win the games. And we've also said and talked about how you don't need to necessarily win any events to win a CrossFit competition. Saxon Panchik didn't win any events at the semifinal, and he won the Granite Games. So that can happen too.
Is he the youngest guy ever to win the CrossFit Games at 22?
Yep, he is.
Reign, the beginning of a reign. How do you spell that? R-E-I-G-N? Paul.
You should look it up, and let's see if you still think it's a reign.
I should look up the spelling of that word?
No, the definition.
Oh. Why, did you just look it up?
No, I know you like to do that when you're trying to assign labels to things.
I do like to do that. I'm looking it up right now, and then I'm going to get back to donations. What am I looking up? Reign. Jesus. Oh, I'm typing in the wrong computer because I have two computers.
I owe Travis Mayer 60 burpees.
How come?
I ranked him 15th, and he said, I'm going to beat that prediction. And I said, okay, if you do that, I'll do 15 burpees for every spot you beat it by. And he said 20. And I said, deal. And he finished 12th.
You're a good dude. Anytime I hear his name, I start to get upset because of what they did to him in that event. Reign, hold royal office, rule as king or queen, the period during which a sovereign rules. Yeah, reign, the beginning of reign. Yes, I'm using it correctly. Thank you for having me double check that. Appreciate it. Feel smarter. Paul Ottenheim. Paul O. Thank you for the $10, dude. Awesome. With a name like that, you need to live in another country, foreign country with a tough name like that. Lewis Cruz, I agree. Travis got robbed of coverage. I mean, completely robbed. How can the guy be in first place half the event and the camera never be on him, and then he win the event and the camera still not be on him? I get it. Scott Panchik is cool as shit, but there was a great story to be told there, and we're watching this because it's a sport. Are either of you interested in making behind-the-scenes content at events in the future like Sevan did in the past? Jason Miller, on the pull-ups, Velner chalked his grip before every bar, and Medeiros didn't. He lost 5 to 7 reps each time. Velner didn't want it bad enough. Ouch. Jason Miller.
I don't agree with that. I just think that he knew what was going on.
Is Chandler Smith just a hype train? Is he just another pretty face? He's got perfect face, perfect complexion, perfect body, and he performs great. Don't get me wrong. They're all amazing. But there's always so much hype behind him. And he didn't make the cut, did he? No. Oh,
he missed it.
Missed it. Missed
it by 8 points, I think, to Cole Sager. We talked about how Cole Sager moved all the way up to 10th after the first event after the cut, dropped to 15th, ends up finishing 14th.
Chandler Smith, 28 years old.
No, they made an adjustment to the scoreboard. It was originally 1 point. It ended up being 8.
Thank you, Ryan. Keep him on his toes. What do you think about Chandler Smith? Are we going to see him back next year?
I guess some of the messages I got this weekend were about the CompTrain crew. So this year's CompTrain crew included Amanda Barnhart, Cole Sager, Chandler Smith-Ketron, Davidsdóttir, and Samuel Quant. Did I say Samuel Quant already? Cole Sager, no. Chandler Smith, whatever, those 5 guys. And just overall that they didn't do as well as they're used to seeing the CompTrain athletes do. And you've been talking about, is this maybe the end of the daughter reign? And I think we have
Not
to
for
just
Annie. Not for
I think we
Annie.
have to distinguish there between the daughters, because also, well, we haven't gotten to the women yet, but there was another daughter, Tori Helga daughter, who I have to see where she ended up finishing, but it might have been her best career finish also. So I don't know what's going on with the CompTrain crew. I feel like ninth place for Amanda Barnhart was a pretty good finish for her. She was 7th and 7th the last 2 years. She's kind of told me now that despite the format, she is a top 10 contender, for right now. Katrin still finished 10th. Yes, it's her worst finish in 7 years, but a top 10 at the games is pretty respectable. She's now got 7 straight top 10 finishes. It's not as impressive as 6 straight top 5s, but it's like Scott Panchik. He had a bunch of finishes inside the top 6, then he had an 11th, and then he came back and got back inside the top 6. So I think maybe it's one of these things where, if they have another year like this next year where everyone kind of underperforms relative to what people think, then maybe I'll want to dive more into that. But for now, I don't know, maybe just an off year for them, and could be any number of things. I haven't really had too much time to think about it.
Chalk that up where Brian and I disagree. Jessica Pearson is asking, is David Katrin-Doder dating the guy she hugged at the end? I believe she is, and someone sent a screen grab of her hugging that guy to me, and then her ex-boyfriend, Street Horner, is right next to him. I mean, I think that's her ex-boyfriend. Maybe she's just collecting dudes, which would be awesome in my book. But yeah, I think that is her. And that guy was on. That guy, Brooke or Brock, I forget his name, but he was on the CrossFit podcast when I was hosting the podcast.
Brooks Lake, or Like, I'm not sure how to say
Back in 1974. I can't wait for Sarah Sigmundsdóttir to come back, hoping one year she can finally put it all together. That's a little off topic, but I'm fascinated by her. What do you think that? I think she's done, to be honest.
I don't think so.
Okay. Robert Boyd says Sarah will be back. We give my boy Travis Mayer some time, Brian?
You want me to talk about it?
Yeah, some of your brain horsepower. He finished 12th. His best finish was
he had a third place finish on event 6, which was the first running and clean ladder workout, and then his next best finish was a 4th. That was on event 9, which was the nightcap on Friday. After what was that workout in the Coliseum after the handstand walk? That was the Echo Bike snatch workout, and then he had a 5th on the finale. I knew that he was going to do well in that last workout. The chest to bar pull-ups and the lunging in particular is something that he's pretty good at. He had a very good performance on a similar workout at Wadapalooza one year. And when you told me that they didn't cover him at all on the broadcast, I was like, man, that's such a shame. He was my pick to win that heat before it even started, and I can't believe they didn't show him at all. And he actually did win the heat.
Do you think he's done? He's 30 years old.
No, from a competitive standpoint, no. He's still relevant in the sport. He's still amongst the best in the world. I mean, I don't think it was a fluke that he was in the top 20. I don't think it was a fluke that he was flirting with the top 10. I don't know if he still, if he thinks he can win at the games. I think that I don't think he can. Just looking at the youth that's coming up in the sport, but that's not to say that he's not one of the best in the world and an incredible competitor.
Did you get a chance to talk to Noah at all?
I did not.
He finished in the top 10, and I think that he wanted this year to be his year, right? And I just wonder how long it takes to lick your wounds and get back on the horse after a fucking beatdown. He wasn't even in the story all week. I mean, it breaks my heart. It's a tough group of guys, but he's a veteran, and has an enormous following, and yet he just never even made it into the story. Never made it into the story.
No, I mean, he finished with a 5th, a 4th, and a 7th, which is a great finish to the weekend, and he needed that just to get into the top 10. He ended up having a 33-point separation from Scott Panchik, but if Scott Panchik could walk, then he, I think he would have probably beaten Noah. Noah would have been outside the top 10. As it is, it's still a top 10 finish. It's still a very good finish. But I did hear him talking to someone on the CrossFit staff after the snatch on Saturday night when he was kind of watching the rest of the guys finish up, and he just was, it's the same demeanor that we expect from him. He was obviously bummed with his performance. He says, I'm not doing as well as I thought I would do this year, but I'm still just trying to enjoy being here and enjoy every moment. And I think that's just that perspective thing. We got it from Scott Panchik. As you get into your 6th, 7th, 8th years and you realize that this is not going to last forever, that even when it's not going your way, if you can still kind of enjoy each workout, enjoy the guys around you, enjoy the experience and the fans, and as well as I do that that's really important to him. So I think he made the most of the weekend despite the fact that it wasn't what he wanted it to be on the competition floor.
GG Strong, $25. Thank you. I think that's a lady, because I think I see a kid in the picture. My eyes aren't too good from the distance. Saska Jansen, awesome coverage and podcast, especially like the late night chats with TDC. I'm a huge fan and supporter. Thank you. No, thank you. What did you think about the Spirit of the Games Award being in the shape of the? And I'm okay with Panchik getting it. Everyone knows I want Briggs, but I'm not gonna go there because Scott's a stud. But I guess I just did go there. But that Spirit of the Games Award, I think that it was shaped as a U, which I think is the Noble logo, and
you missed the golden rings.
It's just sellout. Unless they're cutting Scott a fat check. Like if he's getting $20,000, yeah, make that trophy in any shape you want. But it's a fucking CrossFit Games Spirit Award, and I get it. Noble's awesome. Thanks for coming in. Thanks for pointing up the cash. Thanks for bringing the clothes. Thanks for the prize money. Whatever you did. Thanks for all the support. I mean, it's awesome. You know what I mean? And their logo, their tagline is great. Like it's something like "Don't be a pussy, work hard, and be accountable." Like that's like their tagline. It's like the anti-woke tagline. But the Spirit of the Games Award shaped like Noble, the Noble logo. Come on, man. Keep.
I missed
They're not
the
going to
gold.
be around forever, and CrossFit is
Yeah.
going to be around forever. Do you know what I mean?
I missed the gold.
By
rings.
around forever, I mean they're not going to be the sponsor for CrossFit forever. I'm done. Go ahead.
I missed the gold rings. Yeah, the gold rings I thought were, that award has a lot of nostalgia and history behind it, and I understand that things always have to push forward and change and evolve, but yeah, I think I'm on the same page as you.
Okay, good. I thought you were going to say you don't give a shit, which is fine too. Let's go over to the women. Some people were, and then we'll talk about. I guess there's a ton of stuff to talk about. We could talk about the way. Let's start with the way Dave introduced Tia as the most dominant athlete of all time. I know a lot of people are like, "There's a lot of fun, juicy meat on the bone there. Was that a dig at Matt, et cetera, et cetera?"
Someone pointed out something to me.
Go ahead.
This is not to do with the women, but it is to do with the way that Dave introduced athletes. I do not think that he called Justin Medeiros the fittest man on earth when he announced him as the winner of the CrossFit Games this year.
Did he announce Tia as that? I don't think he announced Tia as that either. I think he announced her as the most dominant CrossFit athlete.
If someone wants to check that out, go see what he called Tia, what he called Justin, and just look back at a couple years. I think he's always said fittest on earth before, and I don't think he said it in either case this year.
But at the end,
do you think it's because he thinks Rich Froning is the fittest on earth?
No. I mean, yes. But Kiki did say at the end, Kiki was very clear at the end. By the way, miss Nicole Carroll doing that. Not a dig at Kiki. Really miss Nicole Carroll doing that. Kiki at the end did basically say, let's give a standing ovation or applause to the fittest athletes in the world. And so
you're talking about at the closing ceremonies?
Yeah, so maybe, by the way, and I don't know if I've ever watched, except for in 2008, the closing ceremonies. Like, usually at that point, I'm running away with my camera back to my hotel room starting to work on footage. I don't think I've ever watched the closing ceremonies. I only watched it this year because you said you were going to watch it instead of go live. So I was like, all right, fuck it. I might as well get on the same page as Brian and watch this shit. But Kiki did say it. But anyway, what do you think about it? I think the argument is, and people were sending me screenshots from Reddit, and I don't go to that fucking whorehouse website, Reddit. It's a despicable, disgusting place. Anyone who goes there,
Ryan smile. I'm guessing he lives on Reddit.
it's vile. It is vile. I hope that I'm wrong and there is a heaven, and that all the people who go to Reddit have to stand up in front of all of us and read their comments on Reddit in front of all of us. And I hope I'm given a fucking, like, a taser to shoot at them and watch them writhe. It's vicious. It brings out the worst in humanity. So I guess people are saying stuff like that he called her the most dominant athlete in history. I did hear that. And that the argument is like, yes, you could argue that because she has 5 wins and Matt has 5 wins and she has the most event wins. But then I think the counter argument was, well, when Matt won, he won by the most points. Do you have any opinion on that? And I'm really only talking about that. I feel like this is like eating cotton candy. This is just like, I feel bad indulging in something like this. I mean,
based on the times that I've listened to you interact with Dave, I know that he doesn't invest a lot of personal time in delving into the stats and the records and stuff like that. And because of that, I feel like one of two things happened. Either someone told him that he wanted to say that, or he had a subtle other agenda by saying that. I don't know that was necessary to say. I don't know if it's accurate to say.
Subtle.
Well, or not so subtle. I mean, a lot of people want me to do the top 10 rankings of all-time male and female athletes, and I cannot sit here and say for sure that I will rank Tia ahead of Matt or Matt ahead of Tia. I need to look at that and have a justification before I call one of them more dominant than the other.
Gotcha. And I do think you should do that. And there was something else today that unfortunately has sunk into my mind. After watching, my wife made me watch the some team events. And she just flat out said, I think that she wanted to watch them because she wanted to watch Rich compete. And so I sat there and watched him, and I started fucking falling in love with Rich all over again, like an ex-girlfriend. And his team, and I want to say their names: Andrea Nisler, Taylor Williamson, and Chase Hill. And man, he's so dominant, and I understand he can't be in the list because it does need to be exclusively for individuals, I believe. But man, maybe he deserves his own mountain. Who knows? But he's
like I think of him like George Washington. Like as years go on, you might want to put other people up there on the Mount Rushmore, but he's never going anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, it's remarkable.
And the other thing about George Washington is he held office for longer than I think anyone else, except for maybe FDR eventually. I'm not entirely sure. But he's still doing it. And he said that he's coming back next year because he's not good at anything else.
Oh, that's it. Wasn't Rich, thank you for bringing that up, because I'd lost my thought. Wasn't he flirting? Didn't he basically say in an interview somewhere that he was done, more or less, but because his cousin Chase wanted a shot at it, he fucking strapped the old Reeboks back on and was going to give it another try. And now he's saying he's not good at anything else. Hey, Rich, let me tell you something. If that's your attitude, it's the only thing you're good at, then get back in the individual and let us party. The people will lose their mind if you go individual now. And hey, what better way to get back at Matt than to beat up on his protege? It's like a movie. It's like some martial arts movie where you got to come back and like beat up the protege.
Dare to dream, but he's incredible. And I think that maybe what happened for him is it's been so long since he was able to get out on the competition floor that maybe he just forgot how much he loved it.
Were you surprised at how quickly Tia said that when they asked her whether she's going to come back again, she just said absolutely, like it was nothing. Just, were you surprised?
A little bit, based on some other things that her and Shane have talked about publicly before, just about as long as it was as the competition and the landscape of the competition was in line with their values and what they set out to do, that they continued to do it. So, we don't, it's of course CrossFit could come back in the fall or the winter and say, this is what the season is this year. And if it's outside of those values, then I have to think that they would have to think about it. But what it tells me is the same thing about Rich, is that she still loves doing it. Whenever, put everything else aside, she still loves going out there and competing.
Or maybe it was just crazy emotional at the moment, and that's why she said yes.
Maybe, but before that, she was asked about her legacy, and she said, I don't know yet. I'm still writing it. So. Oh,
well, that line, immediately when she said absolutely, I text Shane Orr, and I'm like, hey, Tia Toomey T-shirt 2022, just the word absolutely on it. I'd rock that shit.
What if it said fittest alive, and on the back it said absolutely?
There you go. Or how about it said most dominant on the front, and on the back it said absolutely.
Most dominant with a little TDC underneath.
Did you see? Yeah. Did you see? She'd have to get trademark approval from Dave. Did you see Justin Medeiros' score is 1, 2, 3, 4? That's his.
That was his total points total.
Yeah. Some meth head could have a field day understanding what that means. Like that's some sort of message from the heavens. The women, and if you don't know any meth heads, that joke won't make any sense to you. Annie Thorsdóttir, 31 years old.
11 times at the games. First showed up in 2009.
Let's not beat around the bush. Is she coming back or not next year?
I think so.
And is she a threat?
We can't discount her from the podium threat. I don't think she's a threat to Tia. I don't think anyone is right now. But yeah, if she got podium this year, 12 months after giving birth. How could you say she's not?
I think, yeah. I think maybe she just wanted to prove something to herself, and she did it too. But I think that what we need to do is Laura Horvath needs to go train with like Matt Fraser, and he needs to Laura. So here's the thing with the men's competition. Their chances for beating Matt are over. The biggest gift in life that Laura Horvath has right now is that she's going to get one more shot at competing against Tia. And really, she looks like the great hope. And I don't know Laura Horvath's training. I don't know her health situation. I don't know her life situation. But, man, she is going to kick herself in the fucking balls. I don't know if that works for her. If she doesn't, give it her all, because she has a chance. She can beat the great. No one's going to say, if Tia comes back next year and Laura Horvath beats her, no one's going to say Tia wasn't still in her prime. She's not slowing down at all. Next year's Tia could be better than this year's Tia. Shit, how old is Tia? Tia's only 27.
Right.
Can Laura Horvath do that? Can she go train with, someone maniac like Matt Fraser or Colton Mertens, who does 1,000 wall balls with 30 pounds? Can she do it? What does Laura need to do to become, to really, really give Tia a shot next year?
I was just looking. She only beat her on 2 events. Laura only beat Tia on 2 events. She beat her on event 5 by less than 30 seconds. And she beat her on event 9 by less than 30 seconds in a much shorter workout. But on the event she didn't beat her on, she wasn't always that close. So Laura was incredible this weekend. But if you're asking if I think she can threaten Tia next year, barring an injury or to Tia, I don't see it. It's too big of a gap to close.
All right. So much for watching the girls' event next year. Back to the boys.
Hey, no. The women's was incredibly exciting this year, despite Tia's dominant performance.
Well, thanks to Kristen Holte and Annie Thorsdóttir.
I don't know. I think that at times Haley Adams was awesome. Gabby McGowan, Mel O'Brien, Christy Aramo. We had a chance to talk about Danielle Brandon. A lot of people who had pretty impressive and remarkable performances at times throughout the weekend. Yes, no one was as consistent as Tia and Laura were. And yes, nothing was as important, as dramatic as Annie and Kristen. But there are still quite a few impressive storylines and performances. And, as we've been saying all week, arguably 5 of the best 10 women in the world didn't get to compete this weekend.
That's a really good point. That's something to look forward to next year. The rest of those people are supporting characters, though, when you get to Sunday. Sunday really was about, Kristen and Annie stole the show from, Laura's in a tough spot. Tia's her own show, and then Annie and Kristen stole the show for third place, and Laura was just secured second. Who gives a shit about second? I'm saying that rhetorically.
Yeah, and then, look, and the story with Annie is a unique one that might never happen again. Someone that historic in the sport, having that kind of a year in terms of giving the birth and the stuff she shared about how difficult it's been for her, and they pull her up to interview her, and a lot of people in the stands were like, they're not going to talk to Laura, they're not going to talk to Laura, and someone in the stands even yelled, what about Laura Horvath? And the whole crowd started cheering for her, and she stood up and waved, and Kiki got on the mic and acknowledged her, and like you said, it is just a tough spot. They're not going to call everyone up there and interview them. They didn't interview Fikowski or Velner either. That was a special occasion where they chose to talk to Annie. I think that was a very out of the blue, and I don't think it was anything personal against Laura.
That's cool. The crowd, that was like that. That's the only good mob story I've heard in the last 18 months. You're telling me the mob got them to
acknowledge, yes,
to mention Horvath. That's awesome. Did you talk to? Did you see anyone who is devastated out there? I've been out there before at Madison. It's the final heat of the women's event, and I look around, and it's like I think maybe it was the first year Tia won. No, I'm not sure, or second year, and it was just carnage. There were so many girls crying and devastated, and this year I didn't seem to see that. It seemed like the only one who was crying was Annie.
Right, and tears of happiness and joy. It was. I think that a lot of that had to do with. It's been a tough year for everyone, or a year and a half for everyone. And just to be able to be back in that setting in front of fans a lot of these women know each other, and they've competed against each other for 5 to 10 years. And even though once they do get on the floor, they're ferocious and want to beat everyone that's in the lanes next to them, as much as there are tears at the floor, they also always do go and congratulate each other at the end of events, at the end of days, at the end of the CrossFit Games. And I think if I was just kind of reading faces, I would think that maybe Haley Adams was the most upset with her finish relative to what she thought she could do this weekend. But like Kristen Holta didn't look devastated that she finished fourth. She
looked great.
And I think overall it was just a kind of a celebration of being able to do this again, and maybe next year, assuming that nothing derails the season in any way for whatever could potentially happen, that if we're able to kind of get back on track and get into the routine of having the games and knowing that we're going to have the games again, that there might be a little bit more of that emotional kind of investment and heartbreak or whatever you want to call it at the end of the weekend for some of the athletes.
Haley wasn't equipped to win the games, and I'm not letting her off the hook, but it's not her fault. She's still developing some of the tools you need to win the game. It's like showing up to a concert with your guitar, but you're also going to have to play the drums, but you didn't bring your sticks. I don't know if that's a good metaphor. Sorry. She wasn't equipped to win the game. She did amazing, right? She did amazing. She's the youngest person at the top of the pile, right? But she's just not equipped. There were some things there that they asked you to do that she didn't have the tools to do, and that's not. It's kind of not her fault. It's only her fault relative to how long she's been doing CrossFit and how long it takes to build those tools. And you could think of strengths specifically, right? It's not because she's not working hard. She trains with the hardest worker in the fucking sport. That being said, do you think that she feels like maybe she let Rich down in the Mayhem Empire legacy?
No, I don't think she'll feel like she let anyone other than possibly herself down. I don't think she would project that onto the rest of them in any way. And yeah, this was, I haven't had a chance to go back and do any kind of comparison yet, but it felt like it was a heavy games. Like there were a lot of heavy components. If you think about the 2 squat clean ladders instead of 1, and we had a 1 rep max snatch. If you think about the yoke today, if you think about the deadlift today, if you think about the overhead lunge weight today, there were a lot of heavy implements, and we know that the top end strength is not necessarily, it's the worst part of her arsenal, and that was exposed maybe a little bit more often than we might see in a different year. And I think that if you go and look back through the last 15 years of the sport, you'll see that some years are a little bit more heavy and some years are a little bit more long and some years are a little bit more high-end percentage work, but not quite as heavy. And that's just kind of the ebb and flow of it. So, and Dave likes to do that. He likes to remind you in one season, hey, make sure you're strong, and then remind you in the next season, hey, but don't forget that you need to be able to do this too. She's got a lot of the skills and she's got the mindset. She's obviously going to just try her best to continue to get strong while maintaining her capacity on everything else. And we talked about it earlier. She's been to the games 3 times as an individual. Her worst finish is 6th. She's right there.
So Robert Boyd said, I want to quote him correctly. I don't want to screw this up. Shit, I lost it. He said something like, next year Bethany Shadburn will be hot. I think she's hot this year, but if you think she'll be hotter next year, fine. She can be hotter next year. Frank Steed says Haley will get stronger. Jessica Pearson, Haley's build seems more petite. Can her strength really get there? Just, she said biologically. Ty Phelan, Mal O'Brien is terrifying. I agree. 17 years old, 7th place in winning events, going toe-to-toe with Tia in a brutal workout. She's the truth. Kind of hard to not agree with that dude, right?
Except she won one event.
But she's a rookie, dude.
I know.
At 17,
yeah.
She's kind of an unfair rookie. By unfair, I mean it's unfair for us to judge her as a rookie. She's like a preemie. She's like one of those pink mice that you buy to feed your snakes that like you kind of feel bad because it doesn't even have legs to run away. I mean, she's a preemie but with real mice and rats and shit.
This is I've talked about it all season when it comes to both Mal O'Brien and Emma Carey. Is I wanted to see what would happen when they lined up toe to toe with the best in the sport, and that's what they did this weekend. They both made the top 20. Mal ends up finishing 7th, and Emma Carey ends up finishing 16th. There was a nearly 300-point gap in their performances, but both of them should be really proud of what they did this week. And in Mal's case, it is extremely, extremely impressive. If you did watch the award ceremony, you'll see that it said, there's always going to be a rookie of the year, but there's probably not going to be one that's 17 years old and places 7th in the world for a long time. And obviously she's got incredible drive and commitment to this pursuit of excellence in this sport. She is going to continue to improve. I haven't had a chance to really break down her event performances this weekend, but I see a 28th place. That's in the sprint, the 550-yard sprint event, and a 25th place in event 9, which was the bike and snatch workout, and everything else inside the top 15, I think. And that is scary, terrifying, whatever the word was that person used.
You know who I think has even more momentum than Haley Adams? Is Gabriella Magawa. I don't know why I think this, but she's only 22 years old, and I think she took 6th place, and I think next year, maybe it's like Dave says, it's a bias I have. What was the word he used to describe someone?
Proximity bias?
Yeah, proximity bias. But I think she is going to improve even more. I think she's going to improve significantly next year. I also think the
big difference, I think, the big difference between Gabby and Haley, in my opinion, is Gabby is strong. And if you have a prerequisite strength base, it's a lot easier to build up the other tools around that than it is if you have a prerequisite aerobic base and you're trying to get the top end strength. We've heard people in the sport who've been in the sport for a long time say things like, I can get you the same gains in the aerobic realm in 6 months that it might take you 6 years to acquire on the strength side of things. And maybe those are exaggerations, I'm not sure. But it's definitely, I don't think it's very, and the same with Mal O'Brien. She's stronger for her age than Haley is, and she needs to build up some of the other stuff a little bit. Same with Gabby. She really struggled with the freestanding handstand push-ups this year, for example, but that's a skill that you can go back and say, oh, that's on the table now. That's something I have to be prepared for. And 1 year of practicing that every so often, she'll probably be a lot better at it because it's a skill. It's not a strength.
Someone said Michael Barton said Gabby wouldn't have had 6 if the field was full, and you can kind of. Part of me doesn't like that he's saying that, because it can be used at any time. Like, sure, of course, but it is also true. So,
no. If everyone was healthy and competing this year, the whole landscape of it would have been different. But I kind of just always go back to this example. Like, this is a difficult sport, and these athletes, to get to the place they want to be, they have to ride the line in training. They have to line the ride in the way they prepare their bodies. And sometimes that means flirting with injury or flirting with whatever that prevents you from being there. Obviously, the case of Bethany and Carrie Pierce is probably a bit of an outlier this year, but Sarah, Jamie, Brooke, Danny Spiegel, all these people had injuries this year, and those happen.
I have to pee.
Okay.
I need a couple seconds. Someone did ask, can you see the comments, Brian?
No, I don't like to look at them while we're doing it. It's too distracting for me.
I don't believe you. It's hugely distraction. Maybe Ryan can come on while I take a pee break and read you some of the questions. I'll only be gone for 30 seconds. I've already talked more about peeing than the length that I'll actually be gone from the computer.
You got a question for me, Ryan, from the comments?
Here's one. Noble, Rogue, etc. holding any off-season events need my CrossFit fix.
Oh yeah, there's definitely going to be some big-time CrossFit events coming up in the off-season. Rogue will be in October. Filthy 150 is scheduled to be sometime in November. Dubai is planning to go as normal in their time slot in December. Wadapalooza is probably going to be mid-January again. They're going to go back to that kind of normal spot for them in the season, and that brings us right up to the Open in February. So there should be basically one major competition every month, and then Mayhem announced that they're doing that event in the Middle East also this fall. So there's maybe some newer competitions coming up on the scene also. But yeah, the big ones are still planning to run. They've spaced themselves out pretty well so that for people who have that craving and want that fix, that they can get it, every 4 or 5 weeks or so.
Here's a good one. I really like this question. How different is the top 10 with Kari and Bethany competing or not competing? Impact on the top 3?
Oh, I would have never read that question. You guys are lucky Ryan was here. Like 10 people have asked that. I'm like, who cares? But you guys are lucky. Everyone send a big old heart to Ryan for asking your question.
I had a friend of mine do a little bit of a breakdown on the programming this week. So he looked at the monostructural versus weightlifting versus gymnastics, and within the domains of weightlifting and gymnastics, he looked at squat versus push versus pull. He evaluated the time domains of workouts over the course of the weekend. And this is the case every year. Before I say anything else, I just want to say that overall, this was a great test, and I don't think that it had any issues really in terms of distinguishing the fittest on earth or anything like that. But there's always slight biases in the programming, and this year there was a lot more pulling than pressing, for example. Carrie Pierce is very good at upper body pulling movements. She's also relatively strong, so I think that if she, in particular, had been able to complete this test, she would have been a pretty significant factor this weekend.
Thank you, Brian. I would also like to know what stocks to buy next week. Shall I buy Bitcoin or shall I buy Amazon? That's why I don't like those questions. It's just like what I don't like that what if stuff. What if Ricky Garard was here and he would have beat Medeiros? I'm sorry. I'm not being nice. I'm not being nice.
Well, that's why I used it as an opportunity to offer some actual factual insight.
While I was peeing, you guys took advantage of me. Led the show astray. Ben Let, super content and great format. Thanks for the weekend chats. Justin lived up to the hype, and Tia is just insane. Love from Australia. Hold on, I'm going to text my boy, tell him. Oh, I can't. Damn it. Doing a podcast. Hey, I'm doing a podcast. I'll call you back. Yeah, right now. I want to thank Ricky Garard for giving us so much to talk about, for giving everyone so much to talk about. The fact that you tested positive, split, kept posting on Instagram, kept working out hard. Now we've got like a great story and a great narrative, and there's nothing better that I like, then a great story. And if you come back next year, some people are gonna love to hate you. They're gonna want to see Medeiros like fucking punish you and stomp your dick into the ground. And there's those of us who are gonna want you to show up and be the best possible person ever and do amazing. So please, Ricky, come back. I'd love to see you come back. I think that that was a fast pee break, right? I'd love to see you come back, and I want to thank you for taking the journey and for exposing yourself and just being a part of the narrative. It's great. You need a. There's only one story that I remember in my life ever of being in an Uber or a taxi, and I was at a film festival in Kansas City. And it was 4 a.m. I needed to go to the airport, and it was during the craziest thunderstorm. And the taxi driver showed up, and the man was so big. He was over 500 pounds. He had the seat pushed back all the way and fully reclined. Have you ever seen people like that? They're so big that the seat has to be fully reclined, and they're still sitting upright. Anyway, we're driving to the airport.
Yeah, I got actually a funny story about that after this. Go ahead. We're
driving to the airport. Lightning strikes everywhere. It's fucking nuts. I'm afraid I'm going to be late to the airport. I'm miserable, right? Because it's 4 a.m. I'm going to catch an early flight. And he pulls over on the side of the freeway. And he goes, I got to stop and pee. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, we're going to get fucking rear-ended. And how the fuck are you going to get out of the car and pee? And it's pouring rain with lightning strikes everywhere. Well, then he takes a bottle. I think it was like a 2 liter or 1 liter of Coke. And I hear him peeing into the bottle, and the whole car starts smelling like this man's urine. And I remember thinking, wow, I'm never going to forget this taxi ride. And I haven't. It's been 25 years, and I still remember it. And so that's like what Ricky Garard is. He's like, oh, yeah, thank you, Michael Guestfeld. Oh, yeah, Garard will spice things up. Yeah. I just,
You know what would be amazing? If somehow both Ricky Garard and Roman Krennikov were competing at the games next year. That would be cool. And if you're in Roman Krennikov's camp, start working on figuring out how to do that now. Don't wait till next July.
Who's going to test positive this year? Ooh. Don't start writing names in the comments. I don't want you guys chiming in on that. That's just negativity. Be above me. Don't be a douche. I'm a drama queen sometimes. Don't start writing names in. As a fan, what's fascinating once the dust settles is how each elite approaches and what they do over the next 6 months before the Open. Can you guys capture more of this? Railroad CrossFit. What do you mean, like do more, like keep doing CrossFit interviews? You mean like for the next 6 months and like find out what those people are doing? Is that what you're asking? I don't know, man. I'm burnt. I watched more TV in the last week than I've watched in the last 2 years. I'm a little overwhelmed, and I miss my kids. I've only been spending a few hours a day with them. Do you guys think the women's weights are more proportional to the men? This is one's for you, Brian. You didn't know.
Yeah, I'm gonna pull something out real quick. Ask the question.
Do you guys think the women's weights are more proportional to the men's weights this year? I'm not even sure I understand the question. You want to pretend like you understand it? Or do you want me to ask you another question?
No. This is cool. In part of the preparation for the award ceremony script, they have the event winners, and so they have oftentimes list the times of the male and female winner, which it's not indicative of the entire field, but it's pretty cool that oftentimes they're very, very similar. So we'll skip through some of the events that are kind of like the sprint. We wouldn't expect the women to be as fast as the men. But in some of the workouts that have weights, for example, individual event 4, men's winner 13:39, women's 13:41, only 2 seconds apart. Individual event 5, men's 11:49, women's 11:41, 8 seconds apart.
Wait, what was that last one you said? What event was that?
Event 5.
Oh, but you got to tell me, what did they do in that?
That's going to make this segment a lot longer.
Okay, go on. Sorry.
And it's going to... My mind is running pretty thin here.
Oh, yeah.
Because reading numbers is a lot easier than trying to recall workouts in order. But I do remember these next two. Individual event 6, the first clean ladder. Men, 5:45. Women, 5:43. Less than 2 seconds difference. The next clean ladder. Men, 4:51. Women, 4:44. 6 seconds difference. Handstand walk's a little bit different. Event 9, that's a power output on the bike workout. That's different. The running and toe to bar workout, this was amazing to me. And no, there's no weights in it, but it was still cool. Jukic won that one 21:10. Rolf 21:12. Only 2 seconds
Whoa.
difference, the exact same workout. The
Okay, I want
exact
to throw
same workout.
I want to throw this in here. I would have really liked if they would have run men and women together in that. I was actually thinking that during the event. I really like seeing the men and women compete together, and I think it's great for the world to see. And I really wanted to see it. I understand it's a lot of athletes. It's 40 athletes. It's 40 toes to bar stations. But anyway, yeah, that's awesome. So Jukic only beat her by 2 seconds. And let me tell you something. Emily Rolfe had more in the tank.
And there were a lot of women pretty close to her, whereas Jukic and Brown were pretty far separated from the rest of the field. I haven't put the men and women's stats all next to each other yet, but I bet it went like guy, girl, maybe guy, girl, or something like that. Like the women were better at the top overall than the men.
That's awesome. Sevan is going to test positive for Enduraball. Only way to explain all this content. That must be a steroid because it has ball in it. I think my days of doing steroids my window passed. I really.
So anyway, to answer your question.
Sorry. Yes. Go on. What was my question? Oh,
about the weights or someone else's weights. Most of the event finishes, if you look at the men and women's relative finishes, at least for the winners, they're very, very close in terms of time domain. And sometimes, in particular, I remember the first workout from the 2020 games, everyone saw the shoulder to overhead weight, and they were like, oh my God, why is the women's weight so much less than the men's relative to what it usually is? And yet, Tia and Matt's timers were almost identical. Dave tests these workouts meticulously. He has a specific thing that he wants to find, and he gets it right for the men and the women more often than not.
Did you and Dave? It would be fascinating to see you and Dave work together. Did you get a chance to talk with Dave this weekend, or build a friendship at all, or anything like that?
Not overtly.
Not overtly. Did you make any contact? Did you say hi to him? And you guys met. You introduced yourself to him, right? Like a day
We
one.
shook hands and said hi, and then there was a wave and thumbs up exchange midweek.
When you guys met, did he give you a hug and be like, "You're Sevan's boy. Here's your VIP pass. I'll totally hook you up. Call me if you need me."
No.
Oh. Brian is so cool. Seems like a very nice guy in the podcast. But when he came down where I was sitting before the awards, he took a pic and we talked a little bit about your podcast last night. It's weird. I think he meant to say "and" when he came down, because when he says "but," it sounds like he's going to tell a story about how you were a prick in person.
Yeah, I was about to feel really bad about that. I hope not.
Yeah, no, you are actually a nice guy. Some of these questions are long. What man and woman do you think surprised you the most, both good and the bad? Ooh. Brian's not good at slinging dirt. I may have to do the second part for him.
Biggest surprise on the women's side, on the positive end of things, probably Christy Aramo. And on the negative side of things, I think hate to say it, but probably Carolyn Prevost.
Oh, you just expected more from her, right?
Yeah. It wasn't that she didn't try her best or give her all. It's just, I thought she'd be in the mid-teens, and she ended up in the mid-20s. On the men's side, definitely have to give it up for Guy Maieros. I had him ranked second to last. He ended up finishing seventh. He stuck it to me, no question about it. And for the relative bad performance, I would go with Chandler Smith, who we've already talked about.
So Guy and Chandler, and yeah, that's tough. That's tough. I think Chandler, I think he would be a great superstar too. I've never. That's not true. I met him once or twice. I met him and his brothers at least one time. Very quick meeting. They were extremely polite, and he would be a great poster child for the sport. He's like I think he's a gentleman. He's squeaky clean.
Despite his performance this week and whatever that was, he still is. He's an incredible guy.
Well,
an incredible.
Yeah. You need camera time to be the poster child. That was my only meaning.
Gotcha.
And you can't get camera time if you're not at the top, unless you're Travis Mayer. If he won the games, they still would have never put the camera on him. Jackasses. Have I told you guys about how sports is about competition and you have to tell the story about the competition or else it's just boring? Have I gone over that?
You're not the only one who said that to me today. I called a person who's a very important person in my life who happened to watch the games on CBS today, and he said the same thing. He's like, man, I just wish we would have seen more of the competition. He's watched for 2 hours, and he feels like he only saw 30 minutes of competition, and most of the time during that 30 minutes of competition was centered around the same one or two storylines in each division.
Yeah, and then it forces poor Sean and poor fucking Chase, which they do a great job, but of just talking about exercising. And it's great. I love it. I love Chase explaining stuff about why that guy's didn't make the snatch, or what's going on and where the hands need to be in the handstand push-ups and their midline and the different ways people are catching the bar. And I love all that shit. But like, man, tell the fucking story. If you're ever gonna get that was two things that were really, really missed. I've already gone over the story stuff ad nauseum. I mean, fuck, CrossFit should send me a check for fucking consulting for how much I've talked about it. But the other thing that they missed is, and we're guilty of this as much when I was the executive director of CrossFit's media, the L1 and the affiliates should have been blown the fuck up. It should have been said over and over. If you want to learn to move like this is just the way humans are meant to move. Take your CrossFit L1. If you want to get hands-on with people who know these movements, go to your local affiliate. We're in 150 countries. And that shit is such a missed opportunity. It's okay to sell that. It's okay to talk about that.
I'd say it's better than okay.
Yeah. Sevan, what do you think about the fake CrossFit CEO Eric Roza not attending? He's not the fake CEO. He's the co-CEO, just to be clear. And I'm 99% sure he was there. I saw a lot of pictures of him there. I saw him schmoozing with the affiliates. Saw him taking pictures of the athletes in the crowd. Yeah, I think he did. I think he did his part. And I would even commend him that he didn't put his face in the broadcast in order to not steal the limelight. I was disappointed that we didn't get to see more of Dave. I would have liked to have seen Dave do the award ceremony and put the normally it's Nicole Carroll. She hands out the trophies. She's the head of CrossFit Training. She's been the head of CrossFit Training. I know some people are going to get into the minutia, but she's been the head of CrossFit Training since day one. Somebody going to be like, no, for 6 hours it was someone else. No, it's pretty much been Nicole. And so instead, I would have liked to have seen Dave hang that. There's a great photo up there, and there's great time for historical photos and footage to be captured. If you have Dave putting the necklace around the first place prize around Rich Froning's neck, around Tia's neck, and around Medeiros' neck. Like, those are moments we need to capture, and I don't think you just have some no-name doing it. And I probably think that was Dave, because Dave does not like to do the spotlight. And so, contrary to what fucking knuckleheads think. So, but I think Dave needs to suck it up and do that stuff, because I think he is our Joe Rogan and Dana White wrapped into one. And I appreciate him for that. And anyone who dislikes him, they even like him, because you should be thankful that you have someone to dislike and keep you intrigued with the sport. Speaking of that, then let's just fucking go at Dave as hard as we can here. What did you think about the programming this week, Brian?
Excellent. I think
Wow,
that there's
too much coffee. Sorry, say that again. Excellent programming.
Yeah. I think there were a couple workouts. I know that for him, the workouts and the test that is the workouts is very important. But I think he also puts a lot of emphasis on the layout, the visualization, the story that's told on the floor for the fans and for the athletes. That's part of the workout. And I think there were a couple of workouts in both the team and individual divisions that were lacking a little bit there. I wonder if you would have the same sentiments or not. But overall, I thought it was a phenomenal test. I actually really liked that they kept 20 for the whole weekend. I didn't mind that they cut down to 20, and I think it made for a lot of good stories, a lot of good drama, and the athletes were put to the test. I know there's maybe a few athletes who come out of this weekend feeling pretty good, but I think a majority of them will say, yeah, that was difficult, and it should be.
I agree with you. I think the programming was awesome. I think the spectacle was awesome. I know it was good because I didn't want it to be over. Like, I'm ready, like, as much as I'm exhausted and don't want to watch TV anymore and I'm fucking don't want to talk about it anymore, I just need a couple days off, and then I'm ready to do the next CrossFit Games. I really, really, really enjoyed the spectacle. And I'm sure... What do you think? Do you think people who went to Madison had fun?
Oh, yeah. I know that for a fact. I mean, First of all, I just want to say thanks to anyone who came up and said hi this weekend. There were a lot of people who either just acknowledged the podcast, gave a fist bump, asked for a picture, praised the content that we're putting out. And I just always tried to ask them if they're having a good week, if they're enjoying themselves, and it seemed like everyone was. My friends who were up here, I think there were at least 8 people from my box who drove up from Chicago for the weekend watching. I got to talk to them, and they were all loving it. They said this was the best experience they've had at the game. Some of them have been here many times before. So, yeah, from the interactions I've had with everyone on site, it seemed very, very enjoyable.
Bilal Ahmed Khan. That's a strong name. Bilal Ahmed Khan. When you're Armenian, you can do that. Ahmed. Brian is missing the after party. Go chill with Danielle Brandon. Sevan, let him go.
I don't think I'm invited to it this year.
I'm waiting for another $5 donation. Someone else said, and then Brian go. Monster Energy drink got more advertising than the affiliates. Part of me wants to agree with that. Fuck yeah. But another part of me is hey man, the word CrossFit was just everywhere the entire time, so it's kind of hard to say that. But I see your point. Except perhaps Max Snatch should have been first event of the day, in my opinion. I know you had some thoughts about the Max Snatch. This guy's basically saying, I'm reading into it, that he loved all the events too. Great show, but he would have liked to have seen the Max Snatch be the first event, so he got all 40 to see it. I know why Dave didn't make it the first event, at least partially, because he didn't want to run 40 people through it. What do you think about that?
There's definitely, this is a big, I think that the cut situation and the placement of the events is a little bit bigger conversation than people realize, because even if you're listening and I tell you, how did Emma Tall do on the last 6 events of the competition? Was she relevant in any of the events? Do you remember her from anything of the events, Sevan?
I do. No, I don't remember anything specific, but the only reason why I think I do remember her is because she was on the podcast and we interviewed her.
Yeah, so, she was 28th in the run, then she was 18th, 14th, 16th, 19th, 18th. And I don't want to take anything away from Emma Tall. She went through a lot of adversity and challenges to get here this week. She made it inside the cut line, and she did everything she could at the CrossFit Games. It's a very difficult test in strong women's field that we talked about. She finished in the top half of them. So when Dave talks about this, that there's dead weight in the field, even with the cut down to 20, there's about 5 of those women and 5 of those men that just aren't that relevant in a majority of the events coming down the stretch. And maybe they have one event where they pop up there and do well. We can look at Bailey Rail, for example. She was 3rd on the pegboard workout, and then the last 4 workouts, 18th, 18th, 17th, 17th. So she just fades away from relevancy in the last 4 events relative to the remaining women there. And we talked about and gave Bailey a lot of recognition yesterday for getting to this point in the competition. And it is a great achievement. But if you have, we've already removed 15 other athletes or 20 other athletes from the field. And that snatch event's not in the format he wanted to do it. You can't do it with 40 athletes. It would take all day. And it would be...
And it's actually 80 athletes, right? Because men and women.
Correct. But I wrote an article that talked about that event in particular compared to the clean event, and I thought the format with 20 was a lot better than with 10 for a couple different reasons. And I didn't necessarily express my opinion about why I thought it was better, but the drama of the tiebreakers was more fun this year. The fact that there were less athletes who, relative to the less athletes struggled with the first and second bars relative to the total number of remaining athletes this year than they did that year. And so just overall, I thought it was actually really good. And it's not that I enjoyed the clean workout in 2019, but you basically just had Tia versus Barnhart and then Scott Panchik versus Matt Fraser, and that was the highlight. Whereas in this one, there were, I think, across the men's and women's divisions, there were 7 tie breaks of at least 3 people. And that's pretty cool and pretty fun. And there were and a bunch of those athletes had already lifted several bars and several heavy weights just to get to that tie break.
Speaking of the tiebreak, I'm not sure how I feel about the tiebreak. I wish I could give you a better format for the tiebreak. I can't think of one, but on one, I guess I liked it. I was always anxious when it was happening, so I guess that's a good thing. I did feel sorry for the guys who had to snatch that weight to determine who got 5, 10, or 15 points. I just felt I felt, I don't know what the word is, but like even the person who won that, you know, like I think it was, I can't remember, was it Hopper or someone won 15 points and he beat out the other two guys for the 5 and 10 points. And I'm like thinking, and they still just don't look happy. By the way, Danny wants us to get off the air. He just donated $5. He says, thanks, gents. I think that means people want us to leave.
I feel like we've been on for a while, but I have no idea how long it's been.
How long have we been on, Ryan?
About an hour and 40 minutes.
Oh, good. We're done. Go ahead, Brian. You want to say farewell? You guys will be back. I don't know when. We're obviously going to do a shitload of more podcasts together. We'll do more podcasts. Why didn't I do this live from Madison? Because I didn't want to spend my money and go there. And I want to stay close to my kids. And we didn't even know we were really going to do this, you guys. Like like I was talking to Brian today on the phone. I think he ended the last podcast saying, hey, maybe we should be more prepared next year. And I said, well, maybe we should just be prepared, period. This has all been like just accidental. And eventually Brian and I will tell you the whole story. I don't know when. It's a little sensitive, but eventually somewhere along the line we'll tell you the whole story, how the week really unfolded weird for us, but it ended up being great. And I'm so proud of the team. I'm so proud of all four of us. Brian?
No, I just thank you. I know that you took, even though you were there with your family, that you took a lot of time away from your kids relative to what you usually do, and your wife stepped up big and made that possible for us, and as it continued to just develop in the way that we weren't expecting. So, and of course, just everyone who is sticking around and hanging out with us, it means a lot. It does mean a lot.
And just so you guys know, we never knew when we were going to go live exactly. Ryan had to be on call. I had to be on call. Brian had to go running in and out of the stadium. Matt Souza was like at a family reunion or some shit, and he had to be like do all the scheduling and texting. We tried to bug more and more athletes, which is really out of all of our comfort zones, to try to get more athletes on. And we will follow up with people. We have feelers out to Tia. We have feelers out to Fikowski. We have feelers out to Medeiros.
Saxon
Panchik. I've been courting Rich for 3 years. So hopefully Sam Briggs. I mean, there's a ton of people who need to come on the podcast. Of course, Jason Hopper. We need to bust his balls once he's built up a little bit of thick skin. Once this gets in his rear.
Possibly BKG.
BKG would be great. Sarah Sigmundsdóttir would be great. I better say her name's right. Sarah Sigmundsdóttir, Annie Thor's daughter. They would all be great. Katrin David Doder.
And we were trying to get Mallory O'Brien on prior to the games. Maybe we'll have more success after the games.
Right. Either her or Coach would be great. Hopper I'm going to just read a few more and then we'll go. Ready?
Okay.
Now's the time to get in your comments if you want Brian to answer anything for you. It's
going to be rapid fire, short response.
Oh, and everyone should know that this podcast would not even exist at all if it wasn't for Matt Souza, owner of CrossFit Livermore. Hopper kind of set himself up to potentially fall because he did so much media before the event.
What? Is there a question there?
I guess not. Bring Tom Siskron back. That was my favorite podcast ever. That was the one where you talked about penises. He's a urologist. That's where I found out that urologists also work on women too. I had no idea. Get Danielle back on the podcast. Yeah, Brian, why don't you go have a few drinks with Danielle and get her back on the podcast? Thanks a lot, guys. Brian, let's go for a beer and food. Leo Bamel, Michael Gesfeld. Who started the teams thing? What? I don't understand that question. Do you want to try? No. Bien trabajo, Esteban. I think. Did you program event 4? Back to the rat race. Good night from the UK. Enjoy some time off. Peace out. Pavidi Verdi. Who are the winners for next year? Oh, yeah. Go ahead, Brian. Pretty easy.
The people to beat are Tia and Justin.
Yep. Will you touch base with Scott Panchik on upcoming plans? I don't think we've seen the last of Scott Panchik.
We'll see.
Unfortunately for Brian, I think Danielle swings for a different team. No, actually, when she was on our podcast, Tanner Rude, I asked her that, and she clarified. She clarified. Is Rich Froning better than Matt Frazier after his 5th team win? What are your thoughts on Tia coming back next year? I'm going to make the games next year so I can qualify to be a guest on the podcast. That's from Tony Fauci. Ted Williams, $10. Dang. Thanks, Teddy. Why CrossFit Fantasy not popping off? Do you do CrossFit Fantasy League, Brian?
Yeah, I usually participate under a pseudonym.
And is it not big?
I think they had almost 300 people participate. Fantasy Fitnessing did this year.
Does that that doesn't qualify as popping off?
I don't know.
Okay. Is my push-up debt paid, or was that cheating, Brian? Great work this week. Teddy Williams.
You're good, Teddy. You're good.
Guillerme was one of the biggest surprises this year. Seems like a super nice guy. Do you think Justin is the next Matt Fraser? Yes. By the way, who won the Spirit of the Games? Panchik won it. Did Brian's trip get paid for? I hope so. We'll work on that. It depends if I send him a check or not. When's TDC's podcast tonight? That is a great question. I will start texting him and bugging him now. Ryan, is there anything you want to say? Normally we don't let you talk. Might as well let you talk twice this episode since this is the last one.
Sorry if there's any background noise. I don't have as good of a mic as you guys, but I just want to say that I have had the funnest time I've ever had watching the games this year from afar. It's been fantastic. I've really enjoyed hanging out with you guys and doing this podcast and trying to find the best setup for the podcast and making sure the viewers always have something to see on the screen, whether it's background CrossFit stuff or whatever. And I really have enjoyed what we're doing here, and I think we can come back next year even better. So I'm super excited for the future.
I think, Ryan made a great point. This is like a last minute put together. I think we'll get better every show, not just, you won't even have to wait till the games next year. I think as we break into doing more authors, doctors, interesting people, and the UFC and all of MMA, you guys will see a better and better show. Unless we're totally burnt out and we just stop talking to each other. All right, guys, have a good night. We'll be in touch soon. I suspect we'll go on one more time tonight. Probably not live, but I'll hopefully get a debrief with TDC. And that'll wrap up the 2021 CrossFit Games season. Isn't it cool since we're not sponsored by anyone? We don't have to say, like, 2021 Reebok CrossFit Games or anything like that. Like, just say whatever we want. I could call it the Assault Fitness. The Assault Fitness 2021